everybody. I'm Greg Frucci. I'm the author of Path of 300. I'm a professional speaker for the Young Presidents Organization, the YPO. And right now, I'm an expert lesson creator for the 2016 Hay House World Summit, which is going on right now. It happens to be Mother's Day, so hey Mom, happy Mother's Day. I've already talked to you, so I don't want to get any phone calls. Hey Frucci, have you called your mom? I did. The reason why I'm filming this, and I'm actually going to be filming 8 videos. This is video number 1, entitled Run Towards That Which Scares You, which happens to be the title of my lesson that's going on right now on the Hay House World Summit. I just felt compelled to kind of tell the story and tell some background of how I came up with that lesson, and it's all based on the book that I wrote, Path of 300, which is based on the story of me taking off in the Atlantic Ocean alone in a sailboat. I wrote it in the third person. Rats, and there is a plane flying over. Apologize for that, but I'm going to keep going. I don't care. This is real, so why the heck not? Anyway, have you ever reached a point in your life where you just wanted to take off, done, quit? I have a couple times. I recently quit my job and have gone out on my own. But what I wanted to focus on today was back in 2011, I reached a point, actually in 2010, I reached a point where I was done with everything for a lot of reasons, and I'm not going to go into all of them right now, but I just got to that point. And I just happened to have a 30-foot sailboat. Why? Because I love sailing. I'm a surfer, I'm a water person. I happened to work for this dude, Dave Rock. Thank you, you're awesome. Who he kind of worked me and talked me into making payments and buying his boat because he wanted to get rid of it, and he knew my passion, so I did. And but like I said, I got to this point where I was just done, right? And I happened to have a boat, and I just got this wild hair in my head to go take off across the Atlantic Ocean and try to get to Portugal, which I was in love with. Why? I read Joshua Slocum's book a long time ago when I was in high school, and it hooked me. That book is about some dude back in the late 1800s, early 1900s-ish, who decided to do that too. He ended up circumnavigating, and look, I'm not an expert sailor by any stretch of the imagination. Before this journey, I had never taken off past the horizon by myself, alone. I'd never spent a night at sea. I was not an expert. But something inside of me was just like, go. And so I did. So this series of videos is I'm gonna kind of dive into several different points along the way. And this one, I want to skip ahead to the third day on the way to my first stop, which was going to be Bermuda. It happened to be my only stop because of what I'm about to tell you. So that third day, I ran into a storm, a very intense developing tropical system. Why, Frucci, would you do that? Well, so let me back up just a hair. I did this kind of on the cheap. I didn't have instantaneous weather information. I couldn't afford it. This was totally bare bones. I filmed it with some cheap GoPros and the camera actually that I'm speaking into now. But I didn't have instantaneous weather information. What I relied on was an Iridium satellite phone that Dave Rock, the same guy that sold me the boat, actually let me borrow while I was out there. So again, thank you, Dave. And I did have a device called a spot device. It's a GPS-driven device that would ping my position every 20 minutes or so to my Facebook page, to 10 email addresses that I had set up, one of which was Mom, and I'll tip into that later too, but I freaked her out. If you're a mom, God love your sons. We're a little nuts, and I'm one of those. So I apologize, but I was living my dream, and she gets that now. So anyway, so this device would, like I said, ping my position to my Facebook page. So everybody who was friends with me on Facebook and the 10 people that would get my email knew exactly where I was, and they could track my position as I'm sailing in the Atlantic Ocean. So what happened on the second day was I got a phone call on the sat phone from Captain Tom Honig, who was my sailing mentor. The guy's amazing. He's been all over, and just he's an expert. And he's amazing. Anyway, he said, "Hey, Frucci, tomorrow you're going to run into a little bit of a storm. There's a developing cold front, 20 to 30 knot winds, 6 to 8 foot seas. No big deal." And he's right. 20 to 30 knot winds and a 30-foot sloop is fun. I mean, you can haul ass. And I was thinking, cool, I'm going to make up some time. And so that night, the phone would ring. I would pick it up, but I couldn't hear anything. All I was hearing was static. The thing you got to understand about satellite phones is on a day like today when it's cloudy, you don't get really good reception. And I wasn't. And what I didn't know and what they were discovering was the storm that they told me about earlier was actually spinning into a developing tropical system. And I was sailing right smack dab in the middle of it. And I didn't know it. So I wake up the next morning. They were right. 20 to 30 knot winds, 6 to 8 foot seas, and thinking, cool, it's sprinkling a little bit. And I'm kind of joking into this camera about how I was going to have fun today in this little bitty storm. Well, 4 or 5 hours later, it increased to about 50 knot sustained with higher gusts. And the seas were ridiculously high, 20 foot plus in some points of it. It was 15, 16, and 18, and as the images are still in my head. And yes, I was scared to death. And I didn't have a lifeboat, which was dumb, and I'm probably going to get hammered for that one, and I don't care. I did have a surfboard, which you're probably thinking, that's stupid, Frucci. Well, when you're 300 miles out in the ocean, and you're alone, and something starts to happen that could possibly kill you, you begin to improvise. You look at what you have and try to figure out a way to survive. And that's where my mind was going. Yeah, I was thinking, the boat capsizes, I'm going to grab my surfboard and I'm going to sit on it. And I'm going to wait until somebody finds me. I did have an EPIRB. An EPIRB is something that as soon as you hit the water, it sends a signal to the Coast Guard and everybody else out there, and hopefully they come find you before your battery dies on your EPIRB. So, ridiculous, right? Yep, kinda, but it was fun. So anyway, 4 or 5 hours later, the rain's so thick I can't see 50, 60 feet in front of me. It stops. The wind dies down to practically nothing. The seas are still huge. And I'm thinking, I made it through this cold front that they were talking about, only it was a little more intense than they thought they saw. But what I then realized was, as I'm looking to the horizon, it's just black. This is just like a black wall. And so I'm trying to, so I'm looking all around. I spin all the way around 360 degrees, and I'm surrounded by a black wall. And my thought is, holy crap, what just happened? About that time, on my VHF radio, which you keep on 24/7, but only has a line of sight of about 10 miles to the horizon, and I'm almost 300 miles out there in the Atlantic Ocean, I hear, sailing vessel Cuddy, this is Coast Guard 620, do you read me? So I grab my handheld radio, which is right next to the helm, turn it on, and about the time that I'm getting ready to answer, a Coast Guard C-130 just goes right over the top of my head, at like 200 feet. And so I answered, I was like, this is sailing vessel Cuddy, I read you loud and clear. And he said immediately, are you in distress? Do you have engine power? Do you need our assistance? Do you have an EPIRB? And after what I had just been through, I felt like saying, hell yeah, I'm jumping off the boat, save my ass. But I didn't, because I did have engine power. I had dropped the sails hours earlier, and I was running solely on engine power at a storm that was coming at me at about 20 knots, maybe faster, I don't know. I think I do remember him telling me it was moving at like 25 knots. And so I'm powering up these gigantic waves getting airborne and then crashing down on the other side of it. And I'm burning fuel like crazy, just trying to maintain a heading. But I'm like, I got engine. So I said it. I've got engine power, and I'm thinking about turning around on the next wave and running with the storm. And running with a storm is a storm tactic. It's one of those things that you improvise and try to think about, try to get around what you're going through. The intensity of that moment, that wall that I was facing, I had to figure out a way, just like you do. You're going through something right now. I know you are. We all go through crap every single day. And what do? We try to think of a way around it. And the way we try to think, the way we deal with that, the way we get around stuff, is we become present with it. I see it. There's got to be a way to figure it out. And so you focus on it. Your mind becomes present with that thing, whatever that is. So you got choices. You got two choices. You can either, yes, I'm going to figure out a way to get around it and fix it, or fix myself, or solve it, or whatever it is, or you quit. You can sit down on the ground. I could have sat down in the middle of my boat and cried like a little baby, which actually I did cry the next day after it was over because I was just losing it. And I'll probably show you that video too at some point. But yeah, you can do that. You can quit in the middle of it, and hopefully somebody saves you. And I could have said, yeah, Coast Guard, I'm jumping off the boat. Save my ass, please. Take me home. I'm done. But I didn't. So he responded. He said, Skipper, that's a very wise decision. Turning around and running with the storm, because on the other side of the eye wall, it's even worse. And I was like, eye wall? And he said, yes, sir, Skipper. You just sailed into the center of a developing hurricane. I was like, all right, I'm turning around on the next wave. I'm going to run with the storm. So running with the storm, it's just like running with any storm in life. It's like swimming against the current. Have you ever been in the ocean and you get caught in a riptide? If you try to swim towards shore against that riptide, you're going to drown. You're going to die. Riptides are only so wide. So what's the smart thing to do? Swim sideways. And you're going to get out of it. And then you can go back to shore. It's the same thing in life, man. It's the same thing in everything. Maybe you're thinking, Frucci, you were way the hell out in the ocean. Who does that? I've never done that. What you're talking about doesn't apply to me. Bull crap, it applies to you. It applies to everybody. Because at a base level, at a soul level, it's the exact same thing. You improvise, adapt, and overcome any situation the exact same way on a soul level. And what is that? It's becoming present with it. That's what I learned out there. Mindfulness. And I apologize, there's another airplane going over. No, it's not a Coast Guard C-130, but apologize for that. So, and that's lucky, he's barking too. I think I'm gonna pause the video just for a second. So I did it. I got to the top of that next wave and spun the boat around 180 degrees and started surfing that wave. Meaning what? If you go down a wave on a surfboard or on anything, you're going to get to the bottom of it and you're just going to tumble over. Well, I'm a surfer. It just made sense. You just start going down the wave and you turn into it, right? And you're going down kind of sideways until you get to the bottom of it and then you straighten out. Well, I had to repeat that process for the next 12 hours. Get to the bottom of a wave, you wait, turn around and look, see what it was going to be like. And again, it's big. So it picks me up, I get to the top of it and turn in and go. Well, at the bottom of that first wave, the Coast Guard guy is still flying around me. And he goes, hey, Skipper, nice maneuver. I said, well, thank you. And what, can you tell me how long I'm going to have to be doing this? And he's like, let me get back to you. And so he's flying around. Well, I'm still in the eye of this thing. And he comes back on a few minutes later and says, hey, Skipper, last weather forecast for this is it's still going to be moving about 20, 25 knots. You're going with it. And see, it's going 25 knots. I'm only going 7, 8, 10 knots, depending. And so it's going to eventually pass me by. He said around midnight, it will have passed you by. The wind will switch around and die to practically nothing. And the seas will die down and you can turn back around, because now I'm going backwards. Now I'm going back to North Carolina. He said once it passes you by, you can turn back around and start heading towards Bermuda. So that's what I did. And he was right. About midnight, all the nastiness died away. Winds died down to practically nothing and then switched. Seas had died quite a bit. Not all the way down, but they died down pretty good. And I stayed up another couple of hours just kind of downloading what had all happened, and then went to sleep. Set my autopilot and fell asleep. Woke up the next day and it was like it never happened. The sky was blue. The sea was beautiful. The seas had died down to practically nothing. And there was just this light breeze. I raised the sails, turned the engine off, and went up on the deck and fell asleep. But before that, I mean, think about it. You go through intensity, and while it's going on, you're dealing with it, and you're just pounding through it, whatever it is. And then when it's done, then you start to remember. Then you start to download, and you lose it. Maybe you do. I don't know. I did. I threw a fit. And I filmed it, actually. I didn't know I was going to throw a fit. But I was creating video logs. Instead of writing captain's logs, I took this camera, I had it mounted inside the cabin, and it would point out into the cockpit. And I cut it on, and I talk about stuff. And so I talked about the storm the previous day, and just friggin' went off on relationships, on everything. So, again, what did I learn? I mean, it's mindfulness, and I know you hear that word a lot, and I know you hear the word about. I know you hear, and you do it. Maybe you remain present. Well, what does that mean? What that means is, if you're having a conversation with somebody, you don't check your phone, you're not watching TV, you're doing whatever, you're actually with them. You're looking them in the eye, and you're hearing what they say, you don't interrupt them. You just be there, man. And before that trip, I wasn't like that. In fact, I was a jerk a lot of the times. But that day, I had to stay present. If I wasn't, I could have died. If I wasn't totally focused on what I was doing, and a wave just happened to hit me because I wasn't paying attention, and the boat flipped over and something hit me in the head, dead. My life vest doesn't go off, doesn't inflate automatically. I drown, dead. Now, and again, you're probably saying, well, Frucci, that doesn't apply to me because blah, 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 blah. Bull crap. Everything, I'm saying that in a loving way, man. Everything that you go through in life, the same thing applies. Just stay present. So here's the other thing. You know, people are going to tell you to push your anger down. They're going to tell you to just hide stuff. The next day after going through all of that, I lost it, and it felt good. I didn't hurt anybody. And I'm not saying to like let your anger out and let your aggressions out and go hurt somebody. I'm not saying that. And I could be mad at this plane that's flying over right now. It's actually kind of funny. So I'm going to pause the video just again one second. Okay, so it wasn't an airplane, it was a helicopter, and he's pretty much gone now. But anyway, that old way of like keeping stuff down because so-and-so told you to do it, it doesn't work. All it does is just like build crap up. And then when you let that out, it's going to be even worse. So why not just as you go along, when something comes up, release it. I'm not saying go pound somebody in the head or go yell at somebody and be a total friggin' jerk to somebody. No. If you got to go lock yourself in a closet and scream for a little bit, do that. I don't know. But I'm telling you, man, the day after that storm, with all of that intensity, letting it out like that and screaming and yelling and crying like a little baby, it worked. It felt good. So, yeah, just if you think for some reason, again, I say this again, this doesn't apply to you, we're all the same. Every single one of us. We're the same right in here. Yes, your individual story is different than mine. Whatever you're going through is different than Greg Frucci's. The process is the same. That's all I'm saying. So look, I'm gonna end this video right now, but in the next video, I'm gonna start from the beginning. I'm gonna tell you the story of why I took off. And maybe you'll be able to relate to that. We all get to that point where something frustrates us or we want to take off or whatever it is. So I'm going to talk about that one in the next one. In the meantime, remember this. You want to discover what your soul wants? Tell your ego to take a hike. Just tell it to sit back. Till the next time, peace to you. All right, so I think the plane's flying around in circles, but hopefully you don't hear too much of it. So anyway, yeah, that old way of like pushing stuff down, that doesn't work. It's proven. Wow, it's a helicopter and he's coming back. So.